This is the easier-to-read version of Animal Farm by George Orwell, retold and narrated by Sarah Simpson. Chapter 5. During the winter, Molly, the pretty cart horse, started to cause problems. She was late to work every morning because she overslept. She was always saying that some part of her body hurt, so she couldn't work, but she was eating as much as ever. She ran over to the water pool all the time, using the water like a mirror so she could look at herself. All of these issues were annoying, but none of them were serious, until Clover saw Molly doing something that was against all the rules of Animal Farm. "Molly, I need to talk to you," Clover said. "This morning I saw you standing next to the fence that divides our farm from Mr. Pilkington's farm. You were talking with one of the men who works on the farm, and I saw him petting your nose and giving you sugar to eat. Molly, can you explain what was happening when I saw you? Were you really letting a human pet you and give you sugar to eat?" "No," Molly said, looking guilty. "I didn't let him pet my nose. I didn't eat the sugar." Clover went into Molly's stall. There was a lump of sugar and some ribbons hidden there. Molly was obviously lying about talking to the man, but Clover wasn't sure what to do about it. 3 days later, Molly disappeared. For a few weeks, nobody knew where she went. One day, some pigeons came back from flying over the town. They had seen Molly there. She was pulling a rich man in a fancy cart. She was wearing ribbons in her mane, and she was eating sugar the man gave her. She looked happy. Molly ran away and was living with the humans. Nobody talked about Molly after that. It was easier to pretend she had never existed than to think about the reasons why she ran away. The animals were glad the humans were gone. Even though they were free, life was still hard. That January, the weather was very cold. The ground was frozen so hard that the animals couldn't work in the fields. Instead, there were many meetings in the barn. The pigs were always in charge. The other animals were used to thinking that the pigs were smarter than everyone else, and that the pigs should make all the plans. The animals still voted on each idea, but it was just a formality. The pigs were really telling everyone else what to do, and they all just went along with it. The animals were too stupid to see that giving the pigs so much power would lead to problems later. Snowball and Napoleon fought all the time. They never agreed about anything. If Snowball said they should plant barley, Napoleon would say they should plant oats instead. If Napoleon said they should plant cabbages, Snowball would say they should plant potatoes. Some of the animals liked Napoleon, and some of the animals liked Snowball. At the meetings, Snowball was better at giving speeches. However, Napoleon was better at talking to the animals in between the meetings and winning their support then. The sheep liked Napoleon. Every time Snowball would speak, the sheep would start yelling, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, as loudly as they could. After a while, nobody could remember what Snowball was saying, and he would stop talking. Napoleon was using the sheep to interrupt Snowball so nobody could hear his ideas. But the animals were too stupid to understand that they were being manipulated. Snowball had read many books. He had learned all about how to grow crops and run the farm. Napoleon hadn't done any reading. Napoleon didn't have any plans, but he always made fun of Snowball's ideas. The worst fight between Snowball and Napoleon was about the windmill. There was a little hill, and Snowball said it was a good place to build a windmill. The windmill would make electricity that the animals could use to power lights and heaters in the barn. They would be able to use tools like electric saws, and their work would be much easier. They would have more free time, and they could use the time to rest or go to school. Snowball worked day and night drawing plans for the windmill. He found some books in the farmhouse and read them to learn what to do. He made an office for himself in a little shed off the barn. He used chalk to draw the plans for the windmill on the floor. Every day the other animals came to look at the plans Snowball was drawing on the floor. They didn't understand any of it, but it looked very impressive. The only one who didn't go look at Snowball's plans was Napoleon. Napoleon ignored Snowball's plans and refused to talk about the building of a windmill. One day, Napoleon finally went to look at the plans. He walked around the shed one time, didn't say anything, then stopped and peed right in the middle of the floor before walking out again. He still thought the windmill was stupid. There was a lot of disagreement among the animals about whether or not they should build the windmill. There were debates every week at the meetings about what to do. Snowball still wanted to build the windmill, and Napoleon still said it was a bad idea. Snowball and Napoleon were both trying to be the leader of the farm. Everyone agreed it was going to be a lot of hard work. Snowball said that all the hard work would be worth it once the windmill was finished and the animals would have more free time for the rest of their lives. It was better to work hard for a little while right now so they could have an easier life later. His slogan was "Vote for Snowball and the 3-day work week." Napoleon said that the building of the windmill was a waste of time. Instead of building a windmill, they should be planting more hay to eat so they wouldn't starve to death during the winter. His slogan was "Vote for Napoleon and the manger full of hay." The only animal who didn't have an opinion about the windmill was the donkey, old Benjamin. Benjamin didn't believe Snowball when he said the windmill would mean less work. He didn't believe Napoleon when he said there would be more food. "Whether we build a windmill or not, life is still going to be hard for most of us," Benjamin said. "I've lived long enough to know that nothing ever changes, no matter what the people in charge try to tell you." Snowball and Napoleon also disagreed about the best way to protect the farm from another attack by the humans. Even though the animals had beaten Mr. Jones during the Battle of the Cowshed, he would try to come back and take the farm again. The animals had to be ready. Napoleon said the animals needed to get guns and learn how to use them. Snowball said that they should spread propaganda to other farms so more animals would join the rebellion. The rest of the animals couldn't make up their minds. Whenever Napoleon was talking, they agreed with Napoleon. Whenever Snowball was talking, they agreed with Snowball. Snowball finally finished the plans for the windmill. At the Sunday meeting, the animals agreed to vote to decide if they would build it or not. Snowball got up to speak. The sheep started bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, to drown him out like they usually did, but this time, Snowball shouted over them. His speech was so persuasive that by the time he was finished, all the animals agreed that they should build the windmill. Napoleon stood up and whistled. 9 huge dogs came when Napoleon called them. Everyone had forgotten about the puppies that Napoleon had hidden up in the hayloft. The puppies were full-grown dogs now. They were big and mean. The dogs only listened to Napoleon. It reminded the animals of the way the dogs only used to listen to Mr. Jones. The dogs ran after Snowball. They were growling and biting. Snowball ran as fast as he could. He ran through a hole in the fence just in time to avoid being killed by the angry dogs. Snowball kept running down the road and was gone. The other animals saw everything, and they were afraid. They were afraid that Napoleon would use the dogs to hurt them if they disagreed with him. They went back to the barn. Napoleon stood up to speak. The dogs stood around him like bodyguards. Napoleon told the animals that things were going to be different on the farm from now on. Number 1, there would be no more arguing or debates. 2, the pigs would make all the decisions from now on. The pigs would meet in secret. No other animal would join them. The other animals would have to do what the pigs said. Number 3, they would still meet on Sunday mornings. That's when the pigs would give the animals their orders for the week. They would all salute the flag, sing Beasts of England, then go do what they were told. The animals didn't like Napoleon's plan, but they were afraid to say anything. Even Boxer, who was stupid, didn't like the plan, even if he couldn't explain why. A few of the young pigs stood up and started to say they didn't like Napoleon's plans. But as soon as they started to talk, the sheep started bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and the dogs started to growl. The young pigs stopped talking and sat down again. The animals went back to their stalls. Squealer came around a little while later to explain things more clearly for the other animals. I hope all of you are grateful for what Comrade Napoleon is doing for you, Squealer said. He doesn't want to make all the decisions, but he's willing to do it to help you. It's a big sacrifice for him. He would love to let you make your own decisions, but sometimes you might make the wrong decisions, comrades, and then where would we be? Imagine how horrible your lives would be if you had decided to listen to that traitor, Snowball. I don't remember Snowball being a traitor, someone said. He was brave during the Battle of the Cowshed. Bravery is not enough, said Squealer. Loyalty and obedience are more important. Someday you'll remember the Battle of the Cowshed more accurately. You'll remember that Snowball was a coward, not a hero. Discipline, comrades. We have to have discipline all the time. If we aren't paying attention all the time, our enemies will attack. Mr. Jones will attack and try to take over the farm again. You don't want Mr. Jones to come back, do you, comrades? The animals didn't want Mr. Jones to come back. If having debates would make Mr. Jones come back, they didn't want to have debates anymore. From that day on, Boxer had two mottos that he repeated all the time. I will work harder. Napoleon is always right. Spring came. The weather got warmer. The animals worked in the fields. Nobody talked about the windmill anymore. Every Sunday at 10 a.m., the animals met in the barn. One of the pigs gave them their orders for the week. Nobody dared to complain. The pigs had taken Old Major's skull and put it in a special place in the barn next to the gun Mr. Jones dropped during the Battle of the Cowshed. The pigs would put up the flag at the beginning of the meeting, then all the animals had to walk by the skull to show that they were still loyal comrades. In the beginning, the animals used to all sit together. Nobody had a better seat than anyone else. It was different now. The pigs all sat together in a special spot in front of the barn, closest to Napoleon. Everyone else had to stay behind them. 3 weeks after Snowball left, Napoleon told the animals that they were going to build the windmill. He didn't tell the animals why he had changed his mind, but he told them to expect to do a lot of extra work to get the job done. Also, they would have less food to eat. Napoleon told them it would take 2 years to build the windmill. Napoleon said that he had all the plans for the windmill ready to go. They were really the plans that Snowball had made, but the animals didn't think about that and assumed that Napoleon had made the plans himself. Comrade Napoleon was a genius. He could do anything. That night, Squealer came around to explain things to the animals in a way that they could understand. He told them that Napoleon had never thought the windmill was a bad idea. One of the animals asked Squealer why Napoleon had said he didn't want the windmill when he really did want it. Squealer smiled a very sneaky smile. He said that Napoleon had to pretend he didn't want the windmill so that he could get rid of Snowball. Now that Snowball was gone, Napoleon could say what he really thought. Tactics, comrade, tactics, Squealer said. The animals didn't understand what tactics were, but Squealer sounded like he knew what he was talking about. Even if they wanted to ask questions, they were scared to. Squealer had 3 of the angry dogs with him when he came to talk to them. The angry dogs growled at the other animals and stood between them and Squealer. The animals accepted Squealer's explanation without asking any more questions.